Hey guys, it's Cody. I've got a little bit of a reaction here. The Financial Samurai, if you're familiar with him, he's a big blogger in the finance space. He put out a recent article saying that you need to follow the 30-33 rule when looking at buying a home. This is his rule that he's put in place. You need to follow these 3 different items in order to successfully protect yourself and being able to purchase a home. However, I've got some bad news. It's not the best advice that he could give you. You know, I'm a little bit surprised how conservative this advice is, and I just want to give you my reaction to this advice, tell you that there is a better way to do it, and that you don't need to follow these types of rules to be able to get into a home and have a successful purchase while still protecting yourself. So we're going to go through that article here today. I'm going to add my thoughts here on it as well. And again, this is just my opinion. This is just my experience of being a real estate agent, being a real estate investor, and going through this process for myself and with other clients hundreds of times now. I'm going to be giving you my advice on this article and also giving you some tips on how you can do it a little bit better, at least in my opinion. All right, so I've got this pulled up here on my phone. Rule number 1, spend no more than 30% of your gross income on a monthly mortgage payment. Traditionally, the industry says to spend no more than 30% of your gross income on your monthly mortgage payment. However, as the mortgage rates continue to decline, more people are intended to increase that percentage. When mortgage rates are lower, you can already buy more home if you keep your spending as a percentage of gross income fixed. The danger emerges when you break this home buying rule percentage to buy an even more expensive home. Now, scrolling down here, it says spending 40% of your monthly $50,000 gross income on a mortgage still leaves you with $30,000 in gross income. However, spending 40% of your monthly $5,000 gross income leaves you with a much smaller cushion. And that's true. Even in smaller ranges like that, if you're making $10,000 a month, you're going to be able to spend 40%, which is still $4,000 a month. That's way more than you need to spend on your home. Whereas if you make less, you're not going to be able to spend as much. It's going to be a higher percentage of your overall income. So being able to follow this rule of no more than 30% of your monthly income should go towards your house, it just doesn't work, right? If you make more money, you're able to allocate either potentially a larger percentage of your monthly income or a lower percentage. So it's just too hard to give you one range across the entire board here. You know, if you're only making $40,000 per year, it's going to be so hard to be able to only spend 30% of your monthly income on housing. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way that it works here. So I would say you don't need to follow this rule. Make sure that you actually spend money that you can actually afford. Try to keep it as low as possible, right? But going by a 30% mark just doesn't work in all situations. So coming down here, rule number 2, have at least 30% of the home value saved up in cash or semi-liquid assets. This is the one that absolutely drives me nuts. You do not need to do this. He's saying that you need 20% down and another 10% buffer in case you lost your job or in case there was, you know, something needed to worry about, if a repair that came up or something. This is absolutely crazy. You do not need to do this. It's going to take you way longer to save this money up than to just purchase a home and get into it and make a smart decision on buying that home right up front. Saving up 20% to get into a home and having a 10% buffer is next to impossible for a lot of people unless you have an extremely high income. And again, if you have an extremely high income, there's a very good chance that your cost of housing in your area is also very high. You know, a lot of places like California or New York, the housing there is really, really expensive, but you've also got higher incomes. You know, that's where a lot of these high earners are. So it's just not a valid way to really look at this. It's too much to save up 20% and still have that 10% buffer. There's tons of loan programs where you can get in for no money down, which again, I don't necessarily agree with. I don't know that that's necessarily the best option for you, but you can get in for 3.5% or even 5% down. You are gonna have a little bit higher monthly payment, but being able to get into a home and not have to save up that extra $50, $60, $100, maybe even $150,000 for that down payment is going to make a world of difference. It's way better to get into real estate right now and start building that appreciation in the property, start paying down the loan, and have a solid, stable place to actually live in. So he talks a little bit about that. The homeowners who got blown out the quickest during the previous recession had minimal down payments. Yes, that's correct. A better way to do this is to actually make sure that you buy a place where the rents in your market for that type of home could cover what your mortgage is. For instance, if you go buy a house and you're buying a home that's, let's say your mortgage is going to be $2,000 per month, try to find a home that will rent for at least $2,000 per month. You know, maybe it's $1,900, maybe it's $2,100, but you want to break even at the very least. That's my goal whenever I buy a property, is I always want to put enough money down. You know, usually it's in that 5 to 10% range, where if I did have to move out, let's say I have to move back in with my parents, or I have to downsize and rent somewhere, I can still get into a place like that and be able to rent out my home and at least break even to weather that storm. If I lost my job, or if I got hurt or had health issues or something came up, I could at least break even during that time without having to lose my home or sell it at a loss. This is a great way to avoid foreclosure and a great way to avoid having to go through a short sale. Moving on here, if you're planning to buy a home within the next 6 months, keep at least 20% down payment in cash. You know, I agree with keeping it in cash, but again, you don't need 20%. That's just absolutely crazy. I can't believe that people are still spewing out this data, you know, especially people being so financially conservative. I mean, yes, that is a way for some people. That is a great method for a lot of people to get into housing and be able to make smart financial decisions. But the problem is it's so extreme on one side of the end that a lot of people get discouraged. They're like, there's no way I'm going to save up 20%. And they don't look at those options in the middle that are actually very viable for that individual, and they can still make smart decisions. I've done this time and time again. I bought numerous homes with 0% down. I bought numerous homes with, you know, 3% down, 5% down, or even 10% down. So you can still do this. You still can make a wise investment decision without having to put down 20% and without having to have another 10% as a cash buffer for it. All right, now rule number 3, limit the value of your target home to no more than 3 times your annual household gross income. Home affordability based on cash flow is a function of the price you pay for the home. So this is kind of what he's saying here is it's a quick way to kind of assess the value of the home that you should try and purchase. If you're making $100,000, you should buy a home that's no more than $300,000. If you're making 50 grand a year, you should buy a home that's no more than 150,000 a year. However, a lot of people are making 50 grand a year. That's the median price. But unless you live in the Midwest or something, it's going to be so tough to find a home for 150 grand. It's tough even in my market to find condos for under 150 grand. You're going to be looking at like 200 to 220 just to find a decent condo in a decent area. And even then, that's going to be pretty small. So this rule, I just don't agree with. If you're in the West Coast, if you're on the East Coast, even if you're in the Rocky Mountain Range, you know, Utah, Colorado, whatever, where I'm at, it's gonna be way too hard to be able to follow that rule. And again, if you're making 200 grand a year, you're saying, okay, you can buy a house for 600 grand. Yeah, okay, that'd be great. You know, that's definitely living below your means. But if you're 200,000, you know, you really can afford a home that's almost upwards of $1 million if you really wanted to, if you had the down payment to support that. So I don't know that that's necessarily the best decision. I do know that he's trying to say, hey, you've got to use these rules together, right? As your income goes up, you know, you obviously can afford more home, but try to keep it at 30%, but also don't spend more than 3 times the value that you're currently making, right? So I understand you have to use these rules together, but for me, there's just way too many variables in this situation. There's just way too many unknowns, and there's a lot of other opportunities that are still smart financial decisions where you can still make this work. So for me, this just isn't something that I think you should follow. And again, I'd say question this advice, look at other opportunities, look at options to put in less money down, even question the advice that I'm giving you. Maybe you do want to follow what Mr. Financial Samurai here is telling you. Guys, that's just my opinion on this. Like I said, I've helped a ton of people get into different homes as a real estate agent, as my day job, but just look at every opportunity that's out there. Be careful when following advice like this because it's not always 100% accurate and it's not always something that you should follow. For a lot of people, it's just unrealistic. So with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and I'll catch you in the next one.